Hi! On the Woodpecker today, I'm finishing the pantry. I finished the first part of this pantry with a glued case. Now I need to prepare more wood for the rest. After joining one face and an edge, I figure it might be a good idea to empty the dust collector bag. It's only after removing the bag that I realized that the filter was almost full of shavings too. In the end, we have quite a lot of small boxes full of planter shavings. But I'm not done yet. After several hours, I finally have all the rest of the wood surfaced. This means another bag full of shavings. I spend the rest of the day gluing panels. Yes, I will need all this wood. While the glue is drying, I can take care of all this snow. Now that the glue is dry, I can begin to sand all the panels. I always begin the sanding in aggressive rotex mode. Then I switch in orbital mode and sand it all again. After several hours, all the panels are straight and smooth. I can begin to work on the doors. The first thing I do is cut all the rails and stiles. Since everything is cut to the right dimensions, I can cut the tongues of the rails. Then the grooves. In fact, the four doors are done exactly like the side panels. When all the tongues and grooves are done, I can take the measurements of the raised panels and cut them. With the panels cut, it's possible to route the raised profile. I told you, it's exactly like the side panels, and the profile is done in 3 passes. Just like before, I sand the profile I've just cut and wipe 2 coats of shellac. When the shellac is dry, I wipe stain over the shellac. Now I need to wait for the stain to dry. Then I can glue the 4 doors together. Again, they're only glued where the rails and stiles meet. Gluing doors is not a quick job, because it's important to have everything in place and, most of all, make sure that it's square. Eventually, all the doors are glued. I just need to wait for the glue to dry. Here they are. Now I need to put them here, but I can't do this right now. With the back of the inside frames flush to the back groove, the front is now a bit proud. I need to fix this. After asking a bit of help from René to put the pantry on my workbench, I plane everything straight with each other. Now that everything is on the same plane, I can go on by sanding the back of the doors. Here they are in their place. I had ripped the rails and stiles wider, so now I need to cut the doors to width. The width is now right on. Next, I need to cut the height. Now that all the doors are one beside the other, I can see that everything is really square. No racking or play. But I need some play between the doors, so I cut them all to their final size. Perfect for the height. I need to take care of the width. Next, I can drill the holes for the hinges. To have the holes at the same place, I clamp a stop. I move the stop to the other side and drill the remaining holes. Now it's possible to finish the hinges installation. To screw the other part of the hinge inside the case, I clamp a door in place, and from the inside, I drill pilot holes. After screwing this part of the hinge in place, I can clip the door in place. I just need to do the same thing for the other side. But I'm not able to do the top doors with the case like this. I need to turn the case upside down. With the top on the workbench, I'm able to install the remaining doors just like I did for the bottom. This is the look with the doors in place. But right after this, I remove all of them and drill the holes for the adjustable shelves. When all the front holes are drilled, I remove the back and drill the back holes. Now I have shelf holes, but no shelves. I fix this right now. This is 2 of the 3 shelves. But I'm not done with the panels I glued. I need to cut the top. Perfect. But I still need something else. The tin base that lifts the pantry off the floor. For this, I'm going to use the glue-up cutoffs I kept from all the oversized frames. Now that I have 3 of the 4 pieces, I clamp them together and mark the length of the back piece and cut it. The only thing missing is to glue all of them. This is the last piece of the pantry. Now I have a big job ahead of me. Sand everything up to the final grit of 220. Finally, it's over. This needs to be thoroughly cleaned now. I begin with the vacuum, then wipe everywhere with shellac thinner. This doesn't raise the grain, and I'm sure there's no dust left. Then I wipe 2 coats of shellac. I need to be sure that it's all dry, so I leave this alone for the night. The next morning, I scrub everywhere. This way, I remove all the small bumps. Next, I wipe the scrubbing with a damp rag. When it's all done, I can begin to stain everywhere. I begin with one side. When I'm done, we turn the case around so I have the same light to stain the other side. Then I do the inside. One thing I can say is that staining this was way more challenging than I expected. All the corners inside were a nightmare, but not as much as the back. The stain was drying so quickly that it was annoying. The worst thing is that to add to the trouble, it took me 20 minutes to stain all of the back. The shells were also not a walk in the park, and I thought it would have been the easiest part. At the end of the day, I had no stain left. This is all I was able to stain. The doors will have to wait for the store to open. I spent the next day varnishing what I had stained the day before. I begin by brushing some varnish on the edge of the back. This part will never be visible. It's much simpler to use a brush here. Then we stick some painter's tape on the edge of the back. This was tough enough to slip into place. I don't want varnish on top of it. Everything gets a coat of varnish. My big problem is not spraying all the pieces. It's where to put them after. The top sits on pyramids, but we hang the shelves in the air. When it's time to spray the case, I'm pretty happy the back was drying elsewhere, so I can slip inside it and spray there. The outside is much simpler to spray. After about 3 hours, I sand the varnish to remove whatever imperfections could be there and spray the second coat. The next morning, I can remove the strips I had put inside the back's groove. Since I have bought some stain, it's now possible to stain the doors. This will be done in 4 different steps. This is the first step, the back of the doors. We wait 3 hours and it's time for the front of the doors. René makes sure that there's no stain on their edges. This will help for the third step, staining 2 of the 4 edges of each door. I use a foam brush to stain the edges. Here you can see the bottom of the door is stained, but not the side. In fact, 2 sides of each door are not stained yet. This is the last step. 3 hours later, it's time for the last edges to get stained. The next morning, it's possible to spray the first coat of varnish on the doors. Here they are drying. When the varnish is dry, I sand it a bit and spray the second coat. To avoid the pyramids marks on the doors, we let them dry like this. To hold them in place, I use hook screws screwed into one of the hinges screw holes. The next day, it's possible to assemble the pantry. We begin by screwing the bottom frame in place. Then it's time for the back. Before we can slide it in place, we need to remove the masking tape. Then it's possible to push it in place. One thing I can say is that this is a tight fit, but we manage anyway. Then I check if it's square. This is quite important for the doors. Everything seems fine, but I don't take any chances and lay the doors where they will end up. When we're done, it's obvious that this is perfect. Without moving anything, I screw the top of the back in place. Then with the pantry on the ground, I drill the holes for the central shelf and put the screws. But I hadn't drilled any holes to keep the top in place. To do so, I use a router, mostly because I want the back screws to be in a slot so the top can move when there is a change in humidity. Then I screw the top in place. The front screws are in a single hole. The rest are in the center of the slots. I need to take care of the doors now. The first thing to do is to put back the hinges on. Then it's as simple as putting them in place. Okay, the doors are there, but opening them using fingernails is not really practical. So we drill the holes for the pulls. As you can see, I always put a piece of scrap behind the doors to avoid the blowout when the drill goes through. And with this last pull, the pantry is finished. In the end, I'm pretty happy. The doors are lining perfectly. The final look is not that bad. Now it's ready to be filled with kitchen appliances. But this is not a weekend project. I worked on this for 6 weeks. But okay, it's true that I went 3 times to the cottage during this time. So I really worked on it 80 hours in 23 days. This gives an estimate about how long it might take you to make something similar to that. And see you soon for another episode of The Woodpecker.